Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Emerging Preferences and Choices webinar. My name is David Hees. I am the Net Zero Project Manager at the Lancaster West Neighbourhood team, and I'll be chairing this evening's meeting. I'd like to thank all of you for coming along to discuss the refurbishment of Camelford Court, Camelford Walk, Clarendon Walk, and Talbot Walk. Just some quick housekeeping. The meeting is being recorded for other residents and will be put on all the communication channels. Please do keep yourself on mute unless you're speaking. We do encourage a camera on policy, so if you're comfortable that when you're talking, please do turn them on. So let me do a quick introduction to the Lancaster West Neighbourhood team working on the external refurbishment of your blocks. If we could go to the next slide. Thank you. So many of you will know James Caspel, the Neighbourhood Director, and also with us is Andros Luizo, the Head of Refurbishment, Design and Delivery. Myself, David Hees, Net Zero Project Manager, Bhumi Shikoni, Senior Project Manager, Alfie Peacock, Assistant Project Manager, and Janet Hall from the Heat Network Engagement Manager. So if we go to the next slide, please, I'll hand over to the architect, Emily Pang, to introduce their team at Pinoy & Prasad.
Great, thanks, David. Hi, everyone. So on the Pinoy & Prasad team, we've got Sunam Prasad, the design champion for Lot 2. Some of you may remember him from previous co-designs and also the original 2018 Book of Ideas. Raphael Martz is the project principal overseeing the project. I'm Emily, so I'm the project lead for a day-to-day basis. With me tonight is Simon, who is the technical lead, and also Vaya, who is the architect and sustainability design specialist. Not with us today, but on the team is Anne Law, Josh McDermott, and also Chris Liverland, our retrofit coordinator.
Great, thanks, Emily. Sorry, my mute is lagging a little bit. So today's session should run about 45 minutes. And just in terms of agenda, we've done the introductions. James will run us just through an update on the refurbishment site-wide and the co-design timeline. We'll look at window options and insulation strategy. We'll have a review of where we're at with that. Then also options for the roofs on Lot 2. And look at the modern ventilation that we're looking to implement in the blocks to go with the energy retrofit works. We'll talk about corridors and walkways and what are the proposals for them, and also the waste and lifts and the entrances, how we're looking to perhaps configure them. And then just also maximizing fire safety, just talking about the fire strategy on all the lots. And also just looking at some similar sort of example energy retrofits that have happened in the UK. And talk about next steps, especially on how to fill out the survey for your feedback. So without further ado, I will hand over to Lancaster West Neighbourhood Team Director, James Caspel. Thanks, James.
Thanks, David. And it's great to see so many residents here today and no doubt watching us on repeat in their own time. And we're a really exciting point of the refurbishment process for Clarendon Walk, Talbot Walk, Camelford Court and Camelford Walk, in that we are now starting to crystallise what the viable design options are, building on months and indeed years of feedback and engagement from the aftermath of the Grenfell Tower tragedy itself, where we set out in the books of ideas what a 21st century model estate might look like. Since then, we've commenced our internal refurbishment programme, where nearly 4 out of 10 tenants now have experienced significant internal refurbishment to their homes, as well as going on a fundraising drive in which residents and the council worked hand in hand to secure a level of funding that was able to meet the aspirations and promises that were made. So we're very much building on your feedback from phase one, the initial design ideas, where you told us across all 4 blocks in this particular part of the estate that you were very much welcoming of triple glazed windows proposals, external wall insulation, new roofs and modern forms of ventilation. Now, 3 of the 4 blocks now on this part of the estate have had or have scaffolding that's gone up. So our first major block works on the estate has been delivered at Camelford Court in terms of phase 1 of the new warm roof with a co-designed green roof element, and later in the programme will come solar PV panels, which will mean we're generating clean green electricity to benefit residents and reduce your electricity bills. We're looking to do exactly the same on Talbot Walk and Clarendon Walk, and Camelford Walk itself is not far behind. 2 things I want to say really before we hear about the exciting designs that P&P will share with us. One is, with regards to this particular part of the estate, there's probably the most significant amount of work in terms of we've made a commitment that we will provide flat level access to enter all homes in terms of lift access to Clarendon Walk, Talbot Walk and Camelford Walk. And 2, in terms of the way that the original blocks were designed, we have genuine options to choose from in terms of whether we retain the existing recessed balconies and open communal walkways, or whether we look to internalise them, which brings a number of benefits, particularly from a thermal performance point of view. And I know where we've had some discussions with residents so far, there is a concern that choices have already been made. I want to be absolutely clear. In the survey, which I think Jenny has dropped in the chat, you will see there that you as residents will ultimately decide. We're presenting a range of choices and we will go where the majority of residents wish us to go. So you may well see some proposals today and you might have some strong views, and that's absolutely fine. I just want to give maximum reassurance that we will ultimately work with residents, incorporate your feedback and move into finalising the detailed designs later on in the summer. So that's it from me. Really looking forward to seeing the designs presented by P&P and no doubt having conversations with lots of residents over the weeks ahead. Thank you.
Great, thanks, James. So just a quick update. Since we last met at phase 1 and also at the Super Saturday event last October, we've been focusing on 2 key work streams. Firstly, we reviewed your feedback from phase 1 to understand what the key preferences were so that we can focus on development in the right areas. But additionally, we also looked at where there were concerns, as James said, and explored whether or not we could offer some variations or alternatives to address those. So in order to do so and develop the proposals, we needed to do a bit more data gathering to understand the buildings a bit better. So the second work stream has been survey research and analysis. So we know what we put forward to you is potentially possible. So your top 10 priorities that you agreed with, or you put forward to NatWest a while back, is still at the core of the refurbishment. So today we are focusing primarily on the external envelope, and we'll be capturing some of those priorities, such as the windows, communal entrances, the bin stores, and also the lifts, as mentioned. So building on the initial ideas, so the proposals we'll be showing you will have been developed based on majority preferences and feedback you gave us at phase 1. This refurbishment is primarily focused on improving the thermal performance of your homes, and the measures we've focused on to do that will include window replacements, external wall insulation, floor insulation, roof insulation, and also opportunities to install solar panels and potentially green roofs if that's needed, and also to look at simplifying the building envelope. So we spoke about internalising some of the external corridors, also the walkways, and also the recessed balconies. But as James said, we also took on board sort of concerns with those, so we've looked at alternatives as well to discuss with you. So the first component we'll be looking at will be the windows. I'm just going to hand over to Vaya to run you through the proposals. You're on mute, Vaya.
Yes, thank you, Emily. So regarding the windows, we had 90% of you were mainly positive about triple glazing. So this is what we will go forward. 72% were positive about aluminium windows, and I will go through the options that you can have on the next slides. And yeah, 71% were satisfied with whatever type of glazing is most efficient. As I said, we're moving on with triple glazing. And if we go to the next slide, please. We have mainly two options of windows that you can choose from, and they are both triple glazed. They both have very good U values, which means very good energy performance. They are both certified with Secure by Design, and they have a design life of 60 years. The main difference of these windows is, of course, the way they open and the internal finish. And I'll go through that in the next slide. Sorry, is this, there was one more, no? Okay. Sorry. So yeah, the triple glazed windows, as I said, they're much better in terms of thermal comfort, energy savings, and also soundproofing. And of course, installing new windows will affect the appearance of the buildings, but we can keep them relatively similar to the existing if this is what you prefer. And as I said, there are numerous ways to open windows, but we are mostly exploring two of them, which is the tilt and turn opening, which is inward, and the reversible outward opening. Yeah, I'll go through the frames. The next slide, please. So we know that the material preference was aluminium. However, the only window that comes in aluminium finish, both internally and externally, is a tilt and turn inward opening window. So you can see in the picture how this tilts to open, and then you can also open it like a door, basically inwards. So the main sort of disadvantage of this window is that any sort of curtains or blinds that are not installed directly on the window frame may not be able to work because the windows go all the way to the ceiling. So opening the window will probably like a curtain will probably prohibit the window from opening. So the other option, next slide, please. So the other option that we explored is the outward opening window, which is reversible. This means that you can open it and at the end reverse it so that you can clean it from the outside. These windows do not come in full aluminium, but they are basically aluminium windows, but with internal timber finish. But that's the only timber in the structure of the window. Yeah, this the timber can come in various colors. So if we see the next slide, you have the option in the survey to choose what the color you would like to have, like you would like your window to have internally. So generally, lighter colors like white or wood or light gray are recommended, as it will have it won't create a very harsh contrast between the window frame and the light that's coming from the outside. But ultimately, it's up to you. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So that was the windows. So if there are any questions about the windows that you may have right now, we can answer. Otherwise, at the end of the presentation, we'll also have time for questions. Is there anything about windows here?
Do you know?
I'm trying to read.
I think the flat. I think.
Yeah. I would I'm not sure what is the wood finish. It should be some sort of softwood. But we can look into that and provide more information. You can go to Unit 29 at Baseline Studio and try out all the different opening mechanisms and also see the finishes and how the timber looks like or how the aluminium looks like. All right, I can carry on. If that's okay, and we can come back to more questions later. So regarding the wall insulation, initially you were given two options. The first was to have internal wall insulation. The key considerations of this was that it would lead to some loss of internal floor space. There would be longer disruptions in your home, and also the improvement to the thermal performance of the building, it wouldn't be maximized. This is partly due to the fact that we can only add up to 100 millimeters of insulation or less internally. The majority of you, however, have chosen external wall insulation, which means that there won't be a loss of internal space and the disruption of works will be minimal, just in terms of making good. And it will maximize the thermal performance of the building, but it will need a scaffolding. So if you go to the next slide, please.
Yeah, sorry, a bit of a lag.
So yeah, as I said, 71% of you were positive about external wall insulation. So that's what we're moving forward. And the finish we will discuss later. So the main impact of the external wall insulation is on the balconies and on your amenity space. So there are basically two types of balconies around the estate. One of them is the terrace balcony, which can be found on the Upper Clarendon and on Camelford Court, and it doesn't have it's not covered with the roof. And the second is the recessed balconies that are found on Clarendon, Talbot Walk, and Camelford Walk. So the external wall insulation will mostly have an impact on the recessed balconies. And on these ones, you also have an option to choose if you want to keep it or if you want to go for a new bolt-on balcony. We got the next one, please. So, so if you are in Upper Clarendon or in Camelford Court and you have a balcony or a terrace balcony, as we call it, be ensured that your existing terrace will be retained. We will insulate the floor of the terrace and we will raise it as a consequence. This means that there will be a step when you go outside to your terrace, as it is already, but there won't be a step down. And we propose the doors to open outwards, and we also propose to demolish. The slide changed. We also propose to demolish the existing brick balustrades so that we save some space and we keep basically the same area that you currently have. There were also concerns about divisions between the different apartments, as currently there is no division, and it is something we are discussing and will probably provide some privacy separation. If you go to the next one, please. So this is about the recessed balconies that are found, as I said, in Camelford Walk, Talbot Walk, and Clarendon Walk. So there are the option one is to retain the existing balcony and to redefine it. We propose to reorient the access leading to the balcony to go directly from the main living space, and we propose new sliding doors so that the space of the balcony is used more efficiently. We also propose to demolish the existing balustrade again so that we regain some of the space that we lose because we are introducing external wall insulation. And to keep this option, of course, we will require access to your homes to make good of the inside spaces when we remove the existing windows and the existing walls and make good. Next one. So the option 2 of for these balconies is to, of course, internalize the recessed balcony. So you will gain more floor space in your flat, and then provide new, larger bolt-on balconies with outward opening doors. We propose perforated metal screens that will provide some privacy, but there won't be a roof cover. And yeah, to do that, of course, again, we will need to demolish the existing walls and remove the existing windows and make good. So the disruption will be more or less the same. However, to note that with this option, there may be an extra disruption if we require to open up the existing external walls to add additional support that may be required for this type of balcony. Next one, please. Lee. Next one.
Sorry, it is. I think it's just a bit lagged.
Oh, is it frozen? Okay. Should I?
Is it showing yet?
Still see option 2.
Not communal walkway.
Yeah, I could maybe switch.
Sure, if you've got it up.
Yeah. Let me switch to that. I don't know why it's stuck. Oops, is that all right? Can you see it?
Yes.
Okay. So the next amenity space is the open walkway, which is on Lower Talbot Walk and Camelford Walk. And again, there are 2 options that you can choose from. One is to keep the space open and retained. We'll try to insulate the floor and the soffit as much as possible. But of course, this will result in a less good energy performance for your homes. The other option is to internalize these corridors, turn them into internal space. And this will be achieved by installing basically windows between the existing piers. And of course, the outdoor space will be removed, but the thermal performance of your homes will be maximized. One comment was regarding the windows from the bathrooms that are currently looking. That are currently looking on the corridors, or there's the kitchens. I can't remember now, but since we will provide new mechanical ventilation to your homes, you won't require these windows for ventilation. So these windows will have to be fire rated and they will have to be fixed, but we will make sure that they are not required, at least for ventilation purposes. So just to summarize your options, if I can start with option D, because this one is the most similar to what you have right now, and you can choose to keep that. The result will be that the energy performance of the building, of course, won't be maximized, and especially the lower flats, the ones that have access from the walkway, will be the most compromised in a way. And in order to meet our targets and proceed with refurbishment, we will need to add insulation to your floor voids, and that is part of the internal refurbishment team, but it is a crucial step to make sure that these apartments perform good. Of course, the other option, the other extreme, is to go for option A, which is add bolt-on balconies and internalize the walkways, which of course will result to the most energy efficient and green building. But we understand that, of course, this will mean loss of some amenity space and more disruption potentially. And as you see, options B and C are a combination. So you can, maybe the upper flats will choose to go with bolt-on balconies and the lower flats will choose to internalize the walkways, or vice versa. But generally the decision of you, it won't affect your resident. Whatever you do with your balconies or your walkway, it won't affect the energy performance of your neighbors that much. Also, one more thing, we did an overheating analysis of the blocks. Of course, the overheating analysis is based on the proposal. We know that there are overheating issues at the moment in this state, but this will be resolved and addressed. So after we do the refurbishment, we did an overheating analysis, and the only apartments that seem to have some problems are the upper Clarendon flats towards the south. And in order to limit the possibility to have overheating, we will need to introduce some solar shading above the terraces. This will be a perforated shading. It is not providing a rain cover. But yeah, the design of this shading we will develop further later on, and any comments, of course, are very appreciated. Yeah, the next section is external wall insulation. So if there are any particular questions, I can make a pause and have a look at the chat. I think Emily has already responded to one.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay.
I think we can carry on. It's we're addressing some of the questions in the chat.
Yeah, we can continue on, and yeah, yeah, I'll hand over to Simon.
Hi everybody. Yes, so this slide we are looking at the external wall insulation, and the options we have been looking at are, one is using brick as a facade, and the other one is a render system, which is generally a more affordable system using render. The key bit with brick is it's very robust and durable, and then we've got a couple of choices of types of brick, which Harry's already picked up in the chat. Come to that in a minute. One of the questions has been raised about having genuine bricks or artificial bricks, so that's one thing to consider. The issues we're probably going to talk through with the render is really the color and what is the most appropriate color, and what is the characteristics or change of character to the estate. So next slide, please, Emily. Go back one more. Perfect, thank you. So the first version, these are all down in baseline, unit 29. One thing to highlight, of course, is that the insulation is non-combustible, as are all the systems, all the components which are within the systems we're looking at, and they all have testing before continuing, or with demonstrations of the testing to ensure that they're the best ones to use for this situation. With the brick tile system, it is a brick material that looks like a brick, but yeah, to those who are discerning, you maybe not think it really looks like a brick. It's a slightly cheaper version. It has a steel carrier or stainless steel carrier, so it's very durable, but it is a different type of brick because of the way it clips in. On the second picture, the brick slip system, those are actually cut bricks, and they're fired brick material, so they're much more natural looking, and perhaps a greater range is available depending. There are more than one brick slip system available, so depending which ones we pick. But we'll come to the images in a minute to see what the colours are. So these get pointed up in the traditional way, so you'd get the appearance of brickwork. On the render system, the render is fitted to the insulation. The insulation is mechanically fixed back into the wall. You can see a little circle where there's a kind of disc which clips through into the brickwork in your case, and that's a fairly conventional system. The issues there really are about the weathering and maintenance and how it appears in the long term. Next picture, please. Brickwork then, depending whether we've got the one that's a most natural brick or the tile brick, generally the appearance will be more in keeping with the character of the existing building. What some residents had talked about was trying to make the appearance a bit lighter, so we could pick a lighter brick or get one that's as close to the original, which has some good qualities. It's perhaps a little weathered and needs a little cleaning, but we could get something to match the original brick color. Perhaps we'll do a sample test to get it closest to the original color it started off with. So a lighter red brick is one way to go. We'll come to some other pictures in a second. The main thing we're highlighting here is a more expensive system than the render. The staircase we'll come to in a second. That is a different type of tile system, but also would be a brick module. Next one, please. So there's examples of a lighter brick, buff brick, which is becoming quite a characteristic of new buildings in London. As that sort of it's a kind of mixture of bricks. It's not like one uniform color. So there's a sort of multi brick that's pale buff, and there's one here that's more grey, perhaps a slightly sharper, gives a little bit more contrast perhaps with the white bands. So the white bands, which are a current feature, we would endeavour to retain, as they do give some character and then tie in to the staircase area. Next one, please. Now this is a version with an off-white render. White render is a fairly obvious choice. You probably could get other colours, but it is probably the most recessive in a way, or so it can be a tinted white, variations on different shades of white. We've also hinted at some other colours heading towards green and so on, but there would be more issues there, I think, with planning, and a lot to do with the overall residents' opinion as to whether that's the right move to go for. I think the issue really is about the maintenance. Where you've got the exposed parapets without much for coping, you do get some more weathering. You can get slightly hard to predict. You can get streaks and marks. So being able to wash clean the render is something that would be quite an issue. And I think there are some good examples, but it would be a certain kind of coatings you can get to the render which make them more self-cleaning. So I think probably a bit more care required in how it's installed. But because we've got quite a flat surface, it's hard unless you've got string courses or projection to throw the water clear to improve the weathering. It does, I was sorry to go on about the render, it does have some advantages, is it's maybe easier to install. But back on the brickwork would need a steel frame to support a lot of the brick slip carrying system. So there's a bit more disruption involved in doing brick. The external wall insulation and render is perhaps a more straightforward thing to fit to this building. Next one, please. So it would be useful to get a sense perhaps of, we've got some comments in the chat, what the preferences are in terms of bolt-on balcony. That's one question that was coming up. And views about the render versus brick, keeping it to that sort of simple choice to start with, or perhaps the difference between a brick tile and a brick slip. Just trying to look through the chat. Some commentary about graffiti, that's very true. It's quite attractive to apply it if it's accessible. Brickwork seems to be a good comment, and there's support of the idea of a lighter brick choice. Emily, anything else to add there? I think we've covered that point.
Yeah, I think that's all good. I'm going to take everyone's comments on board.
And sorry, the next slide after that, where are we going to? Onto the roof. The roof works you've probably seen have been going on. Clarendon and Talbot are currently on site, and Camelford Court has been finished. The main aim here is to do one of the first stages of the work or phase is to get the wrapping of the building done with the insulation on the outside. So we've been adding that incombustible insulation, and that would then be extended over the parapet so that it would become part of the external wall insulation. So you'd have a continuous blanket of insulation, if you like, over it. So the first stage is being done. The next part would be to do solar panels. Solar panels can be used to generate some electricity for the benefit of the estate and to reduce bills. There are various ways that cost can be shared around with the residents so that their overall costs are reduced. Solar panels add some weight, although they are also relatively straightforward to fit in certain places. We'll come to that. Green roofs add a little bit more weight again, but they're very good at adding biodiversity and also helping to keep the buildings a bit cooler. Some situations you can do both. I think loading constraints here are such that we could combine the two, but that's certainly a trend on other projects. Next slide, please. So for Camelford Court, there was a wish for some green roof, partly because you can see the roofs from Camelford Walk. So there is some enjoyment to be had to break up a long line of solar panel installations. So far that roof work has been done. The heart motifs have been installed, and the PVs, or the solar panels, they will follow on at another stage. Next slide. So here we've had reviews with Clarendon Walk and Talbot residents who've been keener to have the solar panels in preference to the green roofs. Also, there are some limitations to how much the existing structure can take. Because we've been using an incombustible insulation, it is actually quite a heavy type of insulation, and it becomes quite thick. So there's some extra loads added to the roof. So we're at a limit, really. We can add the PVs as shown here, but it's in this case, the residents weren't particularly keen on the green roof. So it's been reasonably straightforward to complete this work. So these two jobs are now well underway. Next slide, please. We wanted to check in with Camelford Walk residents. I don't know if there are any Camelford Walk residents here in the seminar or in the webinar. It'd be good to know what your thoughts are. We're trying to check in about whether to do just the warm roof, or to add the solar panels, or to consider some green roof. Now we'd like to offer that choice because we've also done the same process of doing the choice on the other blocks. In this case, obviously the green roof is still dependent on the structural survey. So there's a bit of survey work to be done to check how the existing concrete is bearing up there once we take into account the new insulation. I don't know if anybody's come through on the chat. Commentary about the green roof and additional maintenance. That is true. There would be some maintenance required periodically to check on the green roof. Maybe go on to the next slide then, Emily, please. Oh, I think we've come to the end of my session then, so I'll hand over to you, Emily.
Right, okay, thank you, Simon. So we're moving on to ventilation now. So with all the thermal upgrades in place, we then need to make sure that you've got good ventilation in your homes. This is for general well-being, as well as trying to keep humidity and mold at risk that bay as well. So every home will need to have a new MVHR system. After phase 1, 57% of the respondents have said that they were generally supportive of the proposal. Next slide, please. So just a quick recap, MVHR, what is it? It's a mechanical ventilation system with heat recovery, and it brings in fresh air and extracts already stale air, but it does it in a controlled way so you don't lose any heat from your homes. So the way it works is that when the warm, stale air is moving out, all the sort of heat that you've sort of warmed up gets transferred onto the cool air coming in, and then this gets distributed around the home. So you'll get a controlled incoming fresh air, so you keep all the heat in your home constant, and so keep your level of comfort as you like it. So in addition to bringing ventilation, it also has additional benefits. There's a filter, so when the fresh air comes in, it filters out allergens, some pollutants and some odours. So there's been anecdotal evidence of people with MVHR systems feeling better in the home, especially if they have allergies or are asthmatic as well. It also helps to avoid humidity problems, prevents mold growth, and it just has a slightly more even distribution of fresh air, so you don't get any drafts, and it's a comfortable temperature and humidity across your home generally. Next slide, please. So a number of systems have been explored by the M&E consultants and mechanical and electrical engineering consultants. So they've taken quite a few things into consideration, looking at the size, sort of sound power as well. And at the moment, we are considering the 2 highlighted options. And this is being trialled across the estate in different pilots flats at the moment. So next slide, please. So this includes 25 Upper Camelford Walk. So previously, when we introduced the MVHRs to everyone, there were some questions and concerns about raised ceiling heights, noise and storage space. So the pilot would trial out the MVHR systems and sort of look at the areas of where we put ceiling drops. So where we can, we'll try and minimize disruption to the internal layouts by placing the ductwork over existing kitchen cabinets. So that's hidden there. And where we need to, we keep them to the side of the room. So you see a bit of a ceiling drop sort of bulkhead. So it keeps the rest of the room free. And if they're sort of bigger drops, then we'll try and localize these in bathrooms and also keep them to one end of the room so that the majority of the room is kept as high as possible. So in the majority of flats, the system will be stored in the current utility cupboards to try and minimize any further taking of storage space. Next slide, please. And that's apart from Camelford Court. So for Camelford Court, where you have the existing porches over the entrance doors, those will be removed when we put the new EWI on, and we will be re-providing the cover over your doors. What we found was that there will be an opportunity to build in some storage as part of this porch cover. So there may be additional storage there to house the MVHR system, and this will free up the space from the homes. Not every home will be able to have this on Camelford Court because of the sort of limitations on the external space, but the majority. So we're trying to sort of minimize disruption in that case. So it would be good to get some feedback from residents of Camelford Court, just to see sort of what you think of the porch idea, and also first thoughts on materials and what you think of the external storage as well. Next slide, please. So as we mentioned previously, we're looking at internalizing the corridors to simplify the thermal envelope. The walkways are also proposed to be enclosed because this will bring the maximum thermal improvement to the homes, particularly the ones coming off the walkway. As part of this, the bathroom windows will have to be fixed, and technically this wouldn't be a problem because the MVHR will be providing the new ventilation and the extract. But we do recognise some residents may find this difficult to accept, and also they also may see the space as amenity space. So we have explored this, and it can potentially stay as an external space if that's the preference of residents, particularly coming off the walkway. The main implication is that the homes coming off the walkway will be slightly less thermally efficient because there's obviously less sort of insulation to buffer the home there. The next step, please. So the next steps for the corridors and walkways. The corridors we will look at a little bit more and develop proposals for stage 3 co-design. The pilot flat will trial out the step removal that we spoke about in previous co-design sessions to see whether this is a feasible proposal, and we'll touch base with you again at the next co-design for that. And in the meantime, we need to prepare proposals for planning. So the key thing we need to take from this phase 2 is to understand whether the walkways want to stay open or if there's a preference to completely enclose them. Next slide, please. Okay, and then so moving on to waste lifts and entrances. So new lifts are proposed to each block. Clarendon Walk will get 2 lifts, 1 on each end. Camelford Walk as well, 1 on each end, and Talbot will have 1 lift, 1 new lift. We'll also be looking at new refuse stores by these new lift locations, and that's sort of that's sort of a holistic refuse and entrance strategy. For Camelford Court, the existing refuse strategy works well, and I think residents are happy with it, so there's no change there. We go to the next slide, please. Okay, so starting with the lifts, the key challenges with the lifts is that for the delivery of them, we need to make sure the stairs stay open as a second means of escape. So there's a challenge of delivery in that first instance. We've looked at that. We believe there's a way we can deliver these lifts. So that's one thing's checked. The other challenge is that there's very limited space. So we've managed to fit the lifts in. However, there is very little scope to maneuver it and adjust. So it is what it is as we've presented it. And then also there's a sort of limitation on structural capacity. So we're bearing in mind we've got to work with the structure provided by the stair cores, and also that it's sitting over their basement. So there's only a certain amount of what we can do with the enclosures and extra load onto area. But there are opportunities, and part of that is to create a holistic experience. So it's about having a new entrance. You come in, you've got lifts and stairs, and then also a new refuse store next to the entrance. It's clearly sort of lit and accessible. It's all sort of in the same area. It will also help to create better wayfinding for the entrances. And as mentioned, there's an opportunity to weatherproof the stairs as well. The main compromise is that we have to lose the refuse chutes to make space for the lifts. Get the next slide, please. So we've looked at two approaches, enclosed or unenclosed. In both of them, we keep the existing stairs, but there may be some remodeling at ground level so that the entrance to the stairs and entrance to the lift face each other. We looked at enclosing it in response to previous feedback from residents who are concerned about the weather, the rain and water coming onto the stairs. So that's sort of one example of how we might go about enclosing the stairs. The other option is to keep the stairs open. The pros of this is that you keep the character of the stairs. There's a high visibility as well. It's also less sort of enclosure, less construction, so there's less cost building it. With the enclosure, it's a new look. You do weatherproof the stairs, but it is slightly more construction, so there'll be a higher cost involved with that. But it all depends on what your key priorities are. So next slide, please. As part of the new lift proposals, the way they interact with the ground floor means that where there are ramps, the ramps will need to be demolished or at least remodeled. So for Camelford Walk, this is a view looking down Camelford Court towards Lancaster Road at the other end. This is with the ramp removed. So there are sort of opportunities to open up the landscape as well as part of that proposal. For Clarendon Walk, there will at least be some remodelling, or ideally, if part of the landscape strategy, we could remove the ramp as well. Next slide, please. Then focusing on the waste and recycling, so comparing what you told us previously and how our proposals are responding. So following phase 1, 83% respondents were positive about having recycling areas in the block. So the proposals with the new bin stores will include recycling facilities, so you have everything in one place. With regards to the refuse chutes, 43% were open to replacing the existing bin chutes with the new lifts. We know this isn't a majority, but then only 22% were against losing the bin chutes. The simple sort of fact of the matter is there isn't enough space to have both, so it's either new lifts or the refuse chutes, and that's one of the key decisions we'll need residents to advise us on. Next slide, please. So just to explain the new refuse strategy, I mean, apart from making space for the lifts, there are other reasons for removing the existing refuse chutes. We've had feedback that they are prone to overfilling and that they can be noisy. It's also a fire risk where they will need to be upgraded if they are kept. The way we try to make the new refuse store a little more convenient is that with the new lifts, it's sort of step-free, so you come straight down into your new entrance, and then there'll be a covered access route towards the bin stores, and you'll have everything from the general waste, recycling, and potentially the compost as well, all in one location. So it is a compromise, but we've tried to make it as convenient as possible. Next slide, please. So yeah, the key questions we will need advice on from residents is whether you're willing to lose the refuse chutes to have new lifts. And also we are still developing these proposals. So if you've got any concerns with the refuse strategy we've just talked about, it would be good to know. And also whether you want to see the stairs weatherproofed or completely enclosed. Next slide, please.
Can I add something, Emily?
Sure.
I just want to add that by keeping the refuse chutes, it will also be very difficult to enclose the staircase. Since the refuse chutes are a fire hazard, they will need to be separated, and that will not be very possible with the existing design of the stairs. So it may not be possible to have refuse chutes and enclosed staircases. It's more possible to have lifts and enclosed staircases.
Thank you. So fire safety. So through all the proposals, we've been reviewing fire safety with our consultant, Trigon. The fire safety provisions that we've been looking at exceed the recommended for compliance with building regulations. So we're trying to do over and above wherever possible. Construction materials will always meet class A1 and A2 where possible. And we also take fire risk assessments for specific areas. For example, on the roofs, when we're looking at the PVs and everything, we've sort of taken a specific fire risk assessment and adapted designs accordingly to maximize the fire safety for those roofs. So some of the recommendations which have been incorporated into the proposals is at least one lift will be a fire evacuation lift. So this will support vulnerable residents in the case of a fire. We will be installing new dry risers to all stairs, and this will help to support the firefighting team. All the internalised communal spaces, so the corridors, if they're internalised, will be supported by automatic opening vents. So this will address all the smoke, well, any smoke that might be in that corridor will be extracted out by these vents. Front doors will have fire-rated side panels. So I think that's been replaced at the moment as part of your door replacement strategy.
Are you sharing or am I sharing?
No, I think you were sharing.
Because I thought you shared, so I stopped.
No. Okay, let me see if I can put it up.
No, let me share again.
Yes, just the one before on fire safety, yeah. Just to run through. Yeah, and then new doors. I believe that's all part of the fire door replacements that's happening at the moment. There will also be some recommendations for inside your home, and these will be captured by the internal refurbishment works team. So the next slide. So finally, it's just to give you an example of another retrofit that is similar in terms of the kind of measures incorporated. So this is Earnley Close in Manchester. It's a multi-apartment block composed mainly of two-storey duplex kind of apartments. And it's got similar issues of cold bridging. So you've got piers, you've got slab edge coming out. That all need to be addressed. And they were working to the same sort of aspiration. So this achieved NFIT accreditation, and they worked with the same. They used its external wall insulation, triple glazed windows, a new floor and roof insulation, and they also installed MVHR systems. And the primary sort of priorities for the project was to address view poverty and improve the thermal comfort and well-being for residents. So it has been done before and it is achievable. Next slide, please. So more survey requests. So we do need to learn as much about the buildings as possible. And this is part of a quality kind of process to make sure the retrofit will be delivered to address the issues that are in your homes. So we need to have condition surveys of every home and a lot of air tightness tests just to see how it's performing now and then what the improvement will be afterwards. So it'd be good if we can have any volunteers to come forward for the surveys, and if possible, it would just be helpful if we can get into everyone's home, so we've got a record of how the existing condition of everyone's home is. Next slide, please. Yeah, and now we hand over to Janet to run through the Nottingdale heat network.
So Janet's not with us this evening, unfortunately.
Okay.
But we have Sean Hayden here with us tonight, who's going to be running us through the heat network slides. So thanks for that, Emily. Over to you, Sean.
Hi all, appreciate your time. Yeah, I'm deputising for Janet tonight. It's going to run through some slides on the Nottingdale heat network and the impact on Lancaster West Estate, in particular your blocks, Camelford Court, Camelford Walk, Clarendon Walk and Talbot Walk. Next slide, please. So these first few slides just talk you through the current engagement we've done with residents over the last sort of 18 months to 2 years now. We've been talking to a lot of residents about how their heating and hot water solution currently presides, how they currently experience it. Here on the screen you can see a map of the estate, and on the left hand side you see kind of red for negative comments about their heating and hot water solution, and green for positive comments about how residents are experiencing their heating at the moment. What it's done is crystallise in our minds the estate-wide aspect of this, of what we're trying to do. We've got a temporary heating solution on that supports the walkways, and on sort of the blocks that we're talking about tonight, we've got an existing heat network as well, which is kind of end of life. And then in between, we've got these individual heating systems, sort of gas combi boilers. What we've sort of come to understand is that the benefits of an estate-wide solution are sort of addressing all of the heating problems that residents have. As I said, replacing the temporary boiler, replacing failing pipeworks to blocks. Big issue for us is, and collectively I think, is the moving away from gas. So gas is soon to be phased out. The government's made a commitment for that to take place, and obviously we've got a commitment as a neighbourhood team and as a council to be zero carbon by 2030. So moving away from that source of energy is really paramount for us, and will be one that we're considering as part of the refurbishment of the estate. And obviously we want to deliver reliable heating. That's one thing that's come through really clear from residents, is reliability is really important. And also that whatever solution that we provide needs to be suitable for the sort of energy efficient homes that we're designing. So that's this slide. If you move on to the next slide, please. This slide just talks about some of the mechanisms as well, which we've used to talk to residents and some of the feedback we've had from them so far. Along the top, you'll see the heating surveys that we did way back in kind of 18 months ago now. Refurb prop-ups, we've had refurb webinars, we've been to most of the refurbishment webinars that have taken place. We've held focus groups with residents, and we're obviously talking tonight about emerging preferences and choices. Some of the feedback that we received from residents from the heating survey was that heating controls came out really strongly, and how they think about their heating and the priorities that they have. Sustainability was quite a minor issue, but actually came out quite strongly. So people are really interested in renewable energy, and making sure we're doing what we need to do for the planet. And then obviously a big issue for residents is affordability of heating, so making sure that whatever solution we provide is affordable. The bottom left illustration is an interesting one. So 60% of residents currently heat their home to a comfort level, but 40% don't. So there's a real disparity there, basically. And on the right hand side, you'll see some initial design ideas about, again, what people want. So affordable heating, use of solar panels, heating controls, and resident involvement throughout the process, basically. And some of the things we're trying to do. So we're sort of including residents as part of those workshops and field visits to looking at other heat networks. We're doing pilots on the estate of different types of heating controls. We're looking at solar panels, as you've heard tonight, how they can contribute to electrification of the estate. And then we are ensuring affordable heating through developing a resident price promise as well, which we'll talk about a bit later. Next slide, please. So again, last slide on resident engagement and what residents are currently feeling today in terms of their heating and what hot water experience. So comfort levels, sort of down the left-hand side, comfort levels, warmth in winter, cool in summer. And then along the sort of top, you'll see the different blocks and how your block has kind of provided commentary to us on those different areas. So you see a real mixed bag about how people are feeling of their heating and hot water, and how they're using their property and their heating currently, basically. Next slide, please. So that's kind of all of that resident engagement and resident feedback, and how people are experiencing their heating at the moment has led us to kind of and also all of the analyses we've done. So we've had a team of people working over the last kind of 18 months to identify at a really high level what are the options, what are the kind of energy supply that we have in the local area, what are the feasible options that we could potentially use. 3 options were kind of shortlisted. Along the top there, kind of electric radiators, individual air source heat pumps in every home, or renewable heat network. And on the left-hand side, you can see how we've scored those different options. So energy efficiency, durability, reliability, cost to install, and then cost of heat. And as you'll see from the red boxes, we've kind of selected the best of those options, or best of those indicators, basically. Renewable heat network comes out as probably the best option, and that's the one that we've chosen based on the feedback from residents and the analysis that we've done on all of the sort of indicators you can see there. Next slide, please. So what is a renewable heat network? Effectively, it's largely what we have at the moment in the blocks that you live in. It is plumbing at scale, it's pipework underneath the properties, and power generated by our local energy centre. A renewable heat network is effectively the same, but with renewable technology providing the heat, and that's just delivered through the pipes to individual buildings and homes. As I mentioned earlier, the government is committed to removing gas from properties and across the country by 2035, and it's looking to phase out individual and gas communal boilers. A heat network can replace gas boilers and will work with wet radiators like those in the homes across the estate that we have at the moment. So we're replacing like for like, so to speak, in terms of what's in the property at the moment. Next slide, please. So how does a renewable heat network work? So we have a local energy centre based on Lancaster West. Excuse me, this supplies renewable heat using a large air source heat pump. The pump requires electricity to produce heat. 5 to 10% of this could be supplied by rooftop solar, as we've talked about previously. This is delivered, the kind of heat is delivered to properties via underground pipes, hot water that is a heat interface unit in each property transfers heat to your radiators and can supply instant hot water taps. So energy sensor supplying hot water to properties, that's transmitted via a heat interface unit, and then that's supplies kind of instant hot water taps. How do we bill? So at the moment you pay a flat fee to the council. Going forward, we're looking to introduce individually measured billing to each home. That is backed up by a government sort of dictate that we have to kind of, if we're installing a new heat network or a new network, then we have to meter and bill each individual home going forward. Next slide, please. So this is just a visualization of what we've just talked about in the last slide. So the heat interface unit will replace existing boilers where there are ones. New radiators and pipes will be installed. So we're just going to replace all of the existing pipework and radiators. We're going to install controls in each home, thermostats, so that residents have actual control of the heating and hot water in their or the temperature of their heating in their properties. And as I said, we're installing heat meters to measure the heat use in individual homes, because that's kind of what we have to do now. Next slide, please. So in summary, what do we see today and what will a new heat network provide? So in terms of radiators, new radiators will be installed. Hot water, we'll be working on the water pressure and improving that. Heat controls, as I mentioned, smart heat controls will be available in every room all year round. And at the moment, you pay a fixed amount to the council for your heating, and this is based on the number of bedrooms. But in future, you'll pay for the heat used in the home to the council. Next slide, please. So I guess the question is, when will this become available? When are we looking to kind of roll this out? Well, in terms of what's going on in people's homes, we're actually doing some of the work now. So the internal refurbishment is starting to replace radiators and pipework in properties as we speak. New energy centre is being on track to be constructed between 2023 and 2024. And then each block will start to connect from 2024. There'll be a phased approach across the estates, and not every block will connect at once. And obviously there'll be resilience in place to make sure that we are managing the kind of supply to each block as we do that rollout. Basically, the earliest connection, as I mentioned, is from 2024. That's basically the earliest we can do it, because we're going to go at the moment through procurement of a contractor to deliver the works, and then they're actually going to go and construct the works, and then we'll sort of look to roll out in sort of 2024. Next slide, please. So just another slide on what it means to you. New heat controls in your flat, smart controls available to each flat throughout the year. So an end to overheating, replacement of pipe work in your home and communal areas to prevent heat loss and overheating. Improve reliability. We're making a big play on making sure that this is the most reliable heat network that we can make it. Outages will be presented by replacing pipes between each block and energy centre also. So yeah, we're looking at obviously making sure that the pipework we install is absolute quality, and that we've got backup in case of energy fallouts, and making sure that, you know, whatever we do is high quality is quite key. As I mentioned, new metering and billing to meet the UK legislation. Heating will be on a pay for use, and we're obviously looking to engage with residents on the pricing of that heating as we go forward. And then electric cooker offer. Residents residents with a gas cooker will be offered an electric alternative. this will support the ambition to make the estate carbon neutral. So we recognise that that could be a pinch point for residents, and we're looking to make that offer to residents as we go through. Next slide, please. Next steps of the project. So continue to engage with residents through this next phase of engagement that the refurbishment team are doing. We are looking at the designs for an energy centre location and where that will be and what it will look like. So another opportunity for residents to feed into that, and there'll be lots of communication and engagement around that. Resident field trips. We had a field trip to Bun Hill in Islington in January, just for staff as a lockdown was still in place. We're looking to develop future field trips to other heat networks, and there'll be some communication on how you can get involved in that if you'd like to. And then we're obviously looking to trial heat meter installation so that we can start to understand the impacts on resident usage, how residents feel about that, and start to prepare people for that change. I guess all of this is going to take place over the next few months, and as part of the phase 3 engagement, and obviously dates continue to be confirmed. If you want to get involved, contact Janet. Janet's our resident engagement on the heat network, stakeholder engagement as well. She's keen to engage as many people as possible and to develop heat network champions. So if you're interested, you want to be involved, you want to learn more about it and be involved further, please drop Janet a line or drop any of us a line, and we'll funnel that to Janet so that you can get involved. I think that's all from me, David.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks, Sean. I just wanted to check if we could go on to the next slide, please. Before I go on to the next steps of filling out the survey, just wanted to check with the floor if there was any other questions or comments on, I suppose, either the district heat network or any of the other options for the refurbishment. I see, Vi, you've been doing a great job of just replying to some of the questions in the chat. So I think most have been answered.
I just want to respond to a few questions that were posted on the chat in the beginning.
That'd be great.
One very good one was that there are, of course, windows that are in a recess in the building. And of course, this means that when we do add the external wall insulation, these windows will be decreased a little bit on the side because the insulation will cover basically the sides of the windows. We are investigating this, and we will try the return of the external wall insulation to be potentially smaller so that you don't lose a lot of your window area. But we do think that the advantages of having this insulation, they are far greater than losing maybe 300 or less millimeters of window area. The other question was about the cleaning. We can investigate whether we can provide openable windows throughout. From the overheating analysis, it seems that this may be the case, but we're still investigating this. And if we do provide openable windows, then you should be able to clean all of them yourselves. But yeah, these are the two I have in my notes.
Okay, great. Thanks a lot, Vi. So just regarding next steps and how to fill out the feedback survey with all these options that we've run through, there was a paper survey that was sent out in the post to all residents, and you can either complete these and return them to Unit 22 in the baseline, or there are also these little dedicated silver post boxes outside the blocks that you'll see. That's also for the paper survey. Then there's also the online survey option, which is the link on the screen, and everyone who sign up to the Block e-newsletter will also receive a link to the online survey, and you can also use the QR codes like the one you can see on the screen now to access it and just do it from your phone. You can also text or WhatsApp us on the number shown there, and we'll send you a link to the online survey just to make it easier, and also offer any guidance and support where needed. And then just to remind everyone that we do have the Lancaster West Refurbishment showroom in Unit 29 in the baseline. where you can come and have a look at some of the samples on show and also talk to a member of the team about your choices. And that is open from Monday to Friday between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. So please fill out your surveys and do it before the deadline of Friday, the 3rd of June, so we get as many options and choices as possible. Next slide, please. Great. So finally, I just wanted to also let you know about the e-newsletter for residents of the estate. Really is the best way to keep up to date with all the refurbishment news on the estate and the block and upcoming events. So again, you can either scan that QR code or follow the link in the chat, which someone will add now. And there's also posters up on the notice boards around the estate with that QR code, or you can find it on our Instagram bio at Lancaster West Neighbourhood Team. So when you subscribe, you must also indicate exactly which block you live in, so we can just send you updates, obviously relevant to your block only. And yeah, we'll be updating all decisions and choices and upcoming events via the newsletter, e-newsletter as well. So please subscribe if you haven't yet. But we've come to the end, everyone. So again, just thank you to everyone who contributed tonight. It's been really useful just to understand the proposed refurbishment works for the block. And thank you to the residents for joining and giving your input and feedback as well. It'll all be noted. And also, just a reminder, a recording of this meeting will be going up on our website, wearew11.org, and on our We Are W11 app, which you can download from the App Store. And without further ado, we can end it there. We can stop the recording, Angus.